listen to it or not?
Hey, Jeff.
Hi, Maria. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Thanks for breaking the silence. How's the
Well,
how's the little one? Oh my goodness, there's the little one.
Yep, I'm with one of the little ones. Not the little one. The little one just went to bed. How about yours?
They're great. Not here at the office. They're great.
Yeah.
Can I see?
Can you see? We're just talking like friends. We're gonna watch a presentation.
Welcome,
Nothing to really.
everybody. I appreciate everyone jumping on.
I want
We have a lot more
to
friends.
try yours out to see.
We have a lot more friends joining us tonight. We'll continue to put the agenda and background information in the chat function, and the presentation and the introductions will start just after 6 o'clock. So appreciate everyone taking some time, whether you are right here on the corner or whether you're joining us from Florida. Appreciate that that interest.
No.
Hi, what's the temperature down there, John?
Well, you're not putting a guilt trip on me at all. It's warmer than where you are. Actually, it's about 60 degrees right now.
That's actually a little chilly.
So that's a little chilly.
Do you have,
Yes.
do you have a sweater on at least?
Thanks to you in the north, sending it down to us to keep us humble.
That's it exactly. Glad you joined us, John.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see your smiling faces.
Amen to that.
Yeah, let's see that.
And just as a reminder for everyone else that continues to join us, we'll be starting the presentation just after 6 o'clock. We'll be putting some agenda and other notes within the chat function. If you don't mind being remaining muted unless speaking for the enjoyment of all parties, we will get started in a couple minutes. So thank you for joining us. I think John is working on some sign language to us. Evening, Pastor Rice.
Hey, guys.
All right, everyone, it is 6 o'clock. We'll give one more minute before we get started. My name is Jeff Respi. I am the Executive Director, at least I will be for the next 9 days at the Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation. I'm so excited that all of you tonight here to talk about this project. It says so much about our community that so many folks want to come on and learn and discuss and have really good conversations. And so I value that. One more time, I'm going to just remind some agenda and kind of ground rules for the evening. I'm going to post the agenda one more time in the chat function. So hopefully you can see that and read through that. If you're just logging on right now, I don't know if you're able to see the past chat, so I'll make sure I post that again in 1 minute as we get started. I would ask if you kindly remain muted unless speaking so that everyone can hear and enjoy the meeting. During the presentation tonight, if you have questions, feel free to use the chat function. I'll be monitoring the chat function and can answer questions as we go. And then when we get to the Q&A, again, you could either use the chat function or you could use the raise hand function on Zoom. If neither of those work for you and you just want to remain muted and just keep waving your arm, that'll work too, and I'll find you and we'll just follow a cue to make sure that we're not Zoom stepping on each other's toes. And so looks like a lot of the folks are coming in. I know I'd expect a few more to come in, but a nice healthy number around it. So I'm going to put the agenda in the chat one more time. Remind everyone that we are recording. Thank you for coming, and hand this off to my friend and colleague, Lucas Reeve. Lucas, take it from here.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Jeff, could you give me a screen share, please? Thank you. Appreciate it. The joys of technology. Can everyone see my screen now? Great. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you acknowledging that. All right. So welcome, everyone. Super excited to be here with you all this evening for the community meeting. So glad to see so many familiar faces and some new faces too. So for those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Lucas Reeve, and I am the Neighborhood Development Director for the Old Community Development Corporation. As Jeff mentioned earlier, and for those who have joined us a few minutes after we got kicked off here, we ask that you please stay muted throughout the presentation, and there will be an opportunity for questions later in the evening, and we'll get to that after the presentation. We are joined this evening by members of the Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation Board. Our Executive Director, Jeff Respi, is here with us, who many of you know, and I see many of my colleagues as well from the Old Brooklyn team on the Zoom, so happy to have all those folks with us. We also have Councilman Chris Harsh from Ward 12 and Councilwoman Rebecca Marr from, excuse me, I messed that up, from Ward 13, Chris Harsh, and from Ward 12, Rebecca Marr. We have our project partner, Scott Skinner from NRP, as well as a special welcome to Pastor Harlan Reif from the Pearl Road United Methodist Church. I would ask that each of the guests listed under the introductions there just take a quick couple of seconds here to introduce yourself, and then we'll go on to the rest of the presentations. Off with Chris Harsh. Councilman Chris Harsh, go right ahead and introduce yourself to the group.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good evening, and it's fantastic to see virtually see 73 people on this call. It's just a testament to how strong Old Brooklyn is and how much our community is filled with people who truly care about this neighborhood, our past, present, and our future. I could probably go on for a long time. I won't right now. I'll save my comments for the end, but I do want to let everybody know that I will start having regular Ward 13 monthly ward meetings at Estabrook Rec Center starting Tuesday, February 9th. I'm going to do these the second Tuesday of every month, and February is dedicated to this issue. We've got lots of free parking, it's handicap accessible. We're going to pick this conversation up tonight, and we're going to reconvene in a couple of weeks over at Estabrook and keep going with it. This is certainly not the end of the conversation, but this is an important step forward for the neighborhood, and I appreciate Jeff and Lucas and your team putting this together for us so that we can see what some of the possibilities are. We have to keep an open mind to everything that we have available to us. So I hope to see everybody here in real life on Wednesday. I'm sorry, did I say Tuesday? It's Wednesday, February 9th, 6 p.m. at Estabrook. Thanks.
Councilwoman Mar, do you want to quickly introduce yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Rebecca Moore. I'm the councilwoman for Ward 12. I'm going to take a minute just to do a little geography because I know that even though we are in separate wards, people often don't realize which ward they're in. So Councilman Harsh has basically 2/3 of Old Brooklyn. I have 1/3 of Old Brooklyn. I have the areas sort of to the other side of Broadview from the St. Luke's discussion. So the St. Luke's building is actually in Ward 13. But if you live in South Hills, Mayview, Treadway, Valley Road, if you live in that area, then you are, or Skylane Boulevard, let's not forget that little bit on the other side of the highway. So if you are in that section of Old Brooklyn, then you are in Ward 12. We'll also be doing regular community meetings. Ours are going to be at the library. And because of the COVID numbers, the libraries aren't open right now for meeting bookings. So I'll keep everybody posted on when we do meetings, but those will be coming up as well for Ward 12.
And I think I'm next in line. Hello, everybody. It's great to see y'all. Great to meet y'all. My name is Scott Skinner, Vice President Development with the NRP Group. I'm happy to talk more about our company and answer any questions that you have later, but just at a super high level, we're a national development, general contractor, and property management firm. We're active in 15 states, but we're a Cleveland company. We were founded here 25 years ago. Our offices are in Playhouse Square, and we've been based here since. We've been developing multifamily housing all across Cleveland, across the country for over 25 years. I oversee everything we do here in Cleveland and across the Midwest as well. It's been really exciting getting to work with Lucas and Jeff and Councilman Marr and Councilman Harsh and getting to know the neighborhood.
Hey, everybody. So I think Lucas had talked about me having a slightly longer format thing, like about 4 or 5 minutes. Is the time for that? Okay, I just want to make sure I'm on schedule. So I will crave your attention I did practice this ahead of time. It should be about 4 minutes and 22 or 3 seconds, depending upon how I do this particular run through. So hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Harlan of Pearl Road United Methodist Church. Thank you all for attending and offering your energy and ideas to this really important initiative to revitalize our block, because of course, Pearl Road United Methodist is on this block. I want to start by saying that apart from the actual parishioners who worshiped there, I think we care more than anyone about the history and legacy of St. Luke's UCC. They were our sister congregation for over a century. We celebrated holiday worship services together. We had a joint youth group for many years. I actually got some of my parishioners that way, as the St. Luke's crowd had a dangerous habit of falling in love with Methodists. So I just want to warn you, there's several on this call, be careful. We miss that congregation and we miss them dearly, but on the other hand, the building is another story. I'm in my 6th year of ministry at Pearl Road, and the St. Luke's building has been an issue the entire time. It was already abandoned when I arrived. The UCC had turned off heat and water and electricity, and so a building that was already too rough for a congregation to maintain continued to deteriorate. Someone broke in and stole the church bell. Folks camped out in the alley between our buildings. Someone broke into the building and lived inside for a while. We were worried about fire. It has hampered our ministry. We sit so far back from the road, and we're built of similar materials, so many people assume that our buildings were a part of St. Luke, and that since they were closed, we were closed also. Our mail has been routinely delivered to their mailbox. I told my parishioners that if the post office can't find you, then you have an accessibility problem. And we watched as the UCC and the Old Brooklyn CDC worked together to bring buyer after buyer through that property. We heard talk of making it a restaurant, a brewery, an antique store, an event center, all sorts of different ideas. But one by one, they were scared away by the cost of renovations and the requirement that if the building were to become anything other than a church, it would need to be ADA accessible. We contemplated ourselves asking the UCC to donate the building to us. I went on tours with our church trustees and district trustees 2 years ago and found that even at that time, free wasn't cheap enough. We didn't have the means for the extensive renovations required to make that space safe, let alone habitable again. We even looked at acquiring it simply in order to demolish it ourselves, to remove it as a danger to our church and a hindrance to our ministry. But as I'm sure the developers on this call can attest, demolition in urban areas is also very expensive. Finally, the Old Brooklyn CDC acquired the property, and I will be honest and say that we were concerned. We knew that the OBCDC had several other development projects in the works, and we were worried that they would not have the bandwidth to address this one in a timely fashion, and that we would be stuck behind a deteriorating building for many more years. So we are grateful that they have devoted such time and care to the project, and now, 2 years later, we are making very real progress toward not only addressing the building, but possibly replacing it with something that brings vitality to our block. Now, I must admit, we had our hopes that this project would more directly involve our building. We have our own issues and renovations to consider. The OBCDC worked with us at Pearl Road and a group of architects and several developers on a range of options. And even now, they are putting us in contact with other developers who might be interested in a project in just our building. Through it all, though, the thing we wanted more than anything else was a project that would fit with this neighborhood and that would do good. And among its many strengths, Old Brooklyn has always offered one great service. It is a good place to raise your family. And many of you on this meeting took advantage of that service and were raised in this very neighborhood. And so I'm excited about a project that will ensure that that opportunity is available to folks from a range of income levels for years to come. I also think it's a good way to honor the St. Luke's UCC legacy. Housing availability is a key focus area for the UCC denomination. So if the property has to be something other than a church, making it a place where children grow up in safety and prosperity is a heartwarming outcome, something that honors their legacy. And so that is my vision as pastor of this church. We have lamented the loss of a good neighbor and ministry partner in St. Luke's. My dream is that we will be in ministry to and with folks who live on our block again, and that we will be working with these new neighbors as well. We want to strengthen our community. We want to raise up a new generation of Old Brooklyners. Without getting too religious at a secular meeting, I will say that's the thing about us Methodists. We are firm believers in the kingdom of God, and we want to do all we can to make our church and our neighborhood a little taste of it, so people will see and believe as well. So we have waited patiently for many years and prayed that whatever happens on this block will make us better equipped to live out our mission. And while there are a lot of questions left to address, and there will be many questions tonight, this project gives me hope that our prayers are being answered. So thank you. That's my thoughts. I think I went a little over, but that's where we're at. Thanks.
Thanks, Harlan. Appreciate it. And thank you to the council members for being here with us tonight, as well as Scott. I appreciate all that you shared with the group. If you're joining us a little bit later, we're just getting started here. We'll have a Q&A following the presentation. If you want to put questions in the chat, please go ahead and do so, as Jeff Forespi from our team is going to be monitoring those throughout the presentation. So we're here tonight because the latest step in a very lengthy process, which covered many years, as Harlan touched on in his comments, we're very excited to announce plans for the redevelopment of the corner of Memphis and Pearl. This is a joint project between NRP and the Old Brooklyn Community Development Corporation. The future project will include 45 to 50 apartment units, 3,000 square feet of street-side commercial space, and constitute the complete revitalization of the corner of Memphis and Pearl. The project itself will be financed by an application to the Ohio Housing Finance Agency, easy for me to say, with a low-income housing tax credit application. I draw your attention to the link below, and maybe if Jeff hasn't already, he could drop it into the chat. I think he has already. This particular link will take us directly to the Old Brooklyn website, which has a whole myriad of documents that we'll be referencing in the presentation tonight. But I definitely encourage you to go there and check it out. There's a lot of really great information that will give you even more context than we're providing tonight. So really give you a solid understanding of where we've come from and where we're at. Since 2014, our goals for how we approach the redevelopment of the corner of Memphis and Pearl have never wavered. In fact, through every conversation, it has only deepened our commitment to these goals. These goals are as follows. Number one, we want to restore vibrancy to the corner of Memphis and Pearl. This is incredibly important, both from an economic standpoint and also from a residential standpoint. From an economic vitality standpoint, it's important for us to have the continued emergence of our Main Street, the Brighton corridor, to set the stage for further investment, and also provide equitable and inclusive economic opportunity for all folks in Old Brooklyn. From a residential standpoint, we've always thought that the site was ideal for adding, quite simply put, more folks to Old Brooklyn, more homes to Old Brooklyn. It's one of the things that our main commercial corridor of Brighton sorely lacks. And so the facilitation and development of housing that's appropriate for all Old Brooklyn residents is tremendously important and a consideration that we've held very high as we've gone through this process. Number two, as Harlan touched on, trying to do everything we possibly can to support and strengthen the Pearl Road United Methodist Church. And then third, explore any option for the restoration of St. Luke's or any options for us to honor St. Luke's in a future development. For over 8 years, Old Brooklyn CDC has been engaged in a long process and a comprehensive effort. Leaving no stone unturned, we've invested significant time, money, and conversations with experts across many fields. In the early days of our engagement on the corner, and up until when we agreed to accept St. Luke's as a donation in January of 2020, we exhausted every effort to find new uses for the church. For a variety of reasons, nobody seemed interested. In the winter of 2020, OBCDC dug in, launching an intensive process to determine the future of the corner. This included a comprehensive assessment of St. Luke's condition, engagement with the Pearl Road United Methodist Church, a master planning study, community engagement, the eventual acquisition of the Green Line building, which sits directly to the south of St. Luke's Church, and a conceptual design presentation to the City Planning Commission. The culmination of this process was an OBCDC-led request for interested developer partners that went out to over 75 groups. Ultimately, after discussions on several fronts, no lead developer emerged who was interested in the project. Fast forward to the fall of 2021, where after an extensive expanded search, 2 development groups emerged interested in exploring a future at the corner. One, a small local boutique developer focused on the historic preservation and reuse of the existing structures, and the other was brought forward by NRP, who was proposing a mixed-use project on the site. For the smaller group, they were unable to get beyond simply the feasibility phase, and the robust and exciting plan presented by NRP became our best option to restore the vitality at the corner, and our board charged us to move forward with NRP's plan. As part of our initial assessment of St. Luke's, we engaged with the Cleveland Restoration Society of Sacred Landmarks. They're the support initiative as part of the Cleveland Restoration Society. We also engaged with many other experts, including general contractors, architects, structural and mechanical engineers. Overall, all the experts shared that the structure is in very poor condition. On several occasions, when we toured through the building, staff members of OBCDC actually fell through sections of the basement floor. And as you kind of move through the building, the deterioration is visible at just about every turn. Contemplating any adaptive reuse of the building would require significant investment with little return expected. Here are a few quotes from the Sacred Landmarks report that speak to the condition of the building. I wanted to draw your attention specifically to a couple here. There's some imagery on the side on the left as well that kind of we pulled from the report that kind of shows a little bit of the condition. But in general, the envelope of the building is in poor condition. The masonry has not been maintained in some time. The mechanical and electrical infrastructure of the building is of an age and condition that would be very, very difficult and require significant investment for any type of occupancy and reuse of the building. And overall, any rehabilitation of the building would really require significant change and cost. As we explored the various development scenarios that we presented in the master plan, and again, I'll point you towards that website where you can read the master plan. It's in its entirety. We explored several different development scenarios, and we also asked ourselves the following guiding questions, which relate back specifically to the project goals that I identified at the outset. And those guiding questions were as follows. What options would best represent the opportunity to revitalize the corner? Of those scenarios, which ones present the greatest economic and residential impact? Of course, how can we create a positive impact for Pearl Road United Methodist Church? And then in the preservation of the structures, is it feasible? How difficult would it be to rehab or develop an adaptive reuse plan? And at what cost and what benefit? So the 4 different scenarios that we investigated and in fact presented to the Cleveland Planning Commission are as follows. Number 1, full preservation. Number 2, a preservation and new construction, where we would actually preserve the structures and include new construction as part of the project. We also looked at new construction plus some form of linkage to the Pearl Road United Methodist Church to help solve some of the issues that they have around their building infrastructure and ADA accessibility. And then we also looked at full-scale new construction on the site. As you can see, the evaluation that we went through of these 4 different scenarios, the first scenario we looked at of preservation was of little impact on vitality. It didn't offer as much in the way of economic impact, and certainly brought no residential, additional residential homes to or apartment units to the Brighton corridor. They didn't really help PRUMC in any way. It certainly did maintain the structures on the site, which would be difficult to tenant, and created a gap in capital for the project of about $4 to $5 million. In terms of the second approach that we looked at, the preservation plus new construction, there was a good vitality, a moderate impact on from an economic standpoint. We contemplated adding 35 to 40 apartments. It definitely helped PRUMC. It did maintain the structures on the site, but again was difficult to tenant and created a gap of about $4 million. The new construction and PRUMC linkage concepts offered a high level of impact on vitality, a significant impact with new business, added 55 to 70 apartment units, and was definitely the best case for Pearl Methodist Church. It did cause for us to lose the structures on the site, presented some construction challenges as we linked to the Pearl Road United Methodist Church, and also presented a small but not insurmountable gap of about $3 million. The fourth and final scenario that we took a look at was full-scale new construction, which created a high level of vitality, significant economic impact with new business and stimulation throughout the Brighton corridor, and also added 45 to 50 apartment units. It was presented a limited impact for PRUMC and also did cause us to lose the structures on the site.
Doesn't sound good.
Now jumping into the plan that we're presenting this evening, just to give context of where we're at, this is the corner of Memphis and Pearl in the Brighton corridor of Old Brooklyn. You see the roads identified there, Memphis to the south and Pearl Road on the right-hand side. The red indicates the site that's going to be developed. It includes the St. Luke's Church, the Green Line building, and a small residence behind the Green Line building. You'll see Pearl Road United Methodist represented here just outside the scope of the project. Here's the site plan for the proposed project. So you can see it mirrors the site plan that we just presented. It calls for the construction of a brand new 4-story a mixed-use building with 45 to 50 units. You can see that there is also 3,000 square foot of commercial retail space that will be on the hard corner of Memphis and Pearl. And there's also 3,000 square foot of amenity space as part of the building that I'll get into later as we kind of get into some specifics, as well as some parking just to the west of the new construction. The image to the left here on this slide represents another NRP project. This is the University Settlement Project in Slavic Village. It's a representation of the quality of their work. While the design for this project at Memphis and Pearl is still very much in development, we'll look forward to engaging with you all again when we have something more material to review. The project architects of Hooker de Young are, as well as both NRP and OBCDC, are committed to the reuse of elements of St. Luke's in the design of the new building. The new building will be a new 4-story mixed-use apartment building, about 45 to 50 units. It'll consist of 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units with rents ranging from $400 to $1,275 a month. All of the units will have high-quality finishes, and the amenities on site will include a business center, a health and wellness workout room, as well as parking on site. The aforementioned 3,000 square feet of street front and commercial space will be something that OBC is helping to coordinate, so we can ensure that the future tenants and uses there are something that makes sense and really serve the community at large. And overall, I would say that we're very excited to partner with NRP, who is one of the nation's largest and most respected developers. The image here represents elements of apartment finishes, which is expected to create a high quality lived experience for folks that become future residents. Overall, the neighborhood impact of the project includes, most importantly, the first mixed use construction of this scale in Old Brooklyn in some, we estimate over 50 years. The 3,000 square feet of white box retail space is retail space that's ready to go for businesses to be able to move in and with minimal cost be able to get open and operating, which will help to stimulate economic activity within the Brighton corridor. OBCDC again controls this commercial space, so it provides us the opportunity to ensure equitable economic opportunity. We'll be bringing 110 to 100 new residents into high quality housing in Old Brooklyn, something that's very much needed, and will bring further stimulation to the corridor along Brighton at Pearl and Memphis. And again, elements of the St. Luke's and Green Line will be incorporated into the design to pay homage to the buildings. Here's our project timeline of some of the key milestones over the next 18 months to 2 years. In February of 2022, coming up very shortly, we'll be submitting that tax credit submission to the Ohio Housing Finance Agency. We'll find out in May whether or not we get those tax credits. In spring and summer of 22, we'll be engaging in architecture and design development, and again, bringing that to you all as part of another meeting where we'll be going through the design of the project to get your way in on what it eventually looks like. That's incredibly important to us. In the winter of 2023, we'll be looking at supporting the current Green Line tenants in relocation, planning, and support to make sure that they find a new home. And then projecting currently spring of 2023, construction beginning, and somewhere in around summer of 2023, occupancy and lease up of the new building. I would say overall, OBCDC is incredibly excited for this transformational project. The opportunity to work with a world-class partner like NRP is equally as exciting. We put a tremendous amount of effort envisioning the future of this important corner, and we are confident that the right plan and future impact of the vitality of the neighborhood will be incredibly positive and a catalytic project in attracting further investment within the district. If you have any questions regarding the presentation that we've just gone through, we're at the point in the presentation where we will welcome you to do so. In a moment, I'll stop sharing my screen. And there will be 2 options for questions this evening. One, you can use the raise hand function on your screen, or you can type them into the chat and Jeff will be helping to tee those up. If you have any questions that don't get answered this evening or want to reach out, my contact is here and is also available on the website through the link that we provided. So you can feel free to reach out to me and we'll get those questions addressed with you. I want to thank you so much for listening. I know a lot to take in and excited to jump into the Q&A portion of the evening. I will go ahead and stop sharing my screen now.
Lucas, thank you for making that presentation, and thank you for everyone who's been working through the chat function. I'm going to go in order first, and then as you have additional questions, let's make sure we get them in the chat, and then we can, or if you need to raise your hand, we'll go from there. So the first question from Eddie, and I hope I'm saying that right, is kind of a question about how can we be ensured, Lucas, that the project, we don't lose the structure and end up with a dollar store, which has happened in the past in history in Old Brooklyn. So if you can speak to that, please.
By the way, my name is Edie. Eddie is spelled with 2 Ds.
Thank you so much for correcting me, Edie. I apologize for that.
Thank you, Edie. Appreciate the question. And I think the partnership between NRP and OBCDC, and having OBCDC, be a part of this as a partner with NRP, really helps to put us in a position to be in the driver's seat, which is something that we sought of any developer partner that we would work with for the redevelopment of this corner. And so, from the perspective of what the finished product looks like, both in design and how it ends up, being used and tenanted, having OBCDC at the table with NRP and having the input of folks in the community like you is tremendously important to that end. And so I think we can assure you that we would avoid any type of use here that wouldn't benefit the community at large.
And can I chime in real quick? Edie, I will stake my entire career on answering this question. Under no circumstances, hear me loud, hear me clear, all of Old Brooklyn, we will not build a dollar store at this location. That is not going to happen. I will be out there chained to the building. We will throw our bodies on the gears of the machinery and stop it. There's no way, under any circumstances, under my watch, will this turn into a dollar store. Not going to happen.
Thank you, Edie, for your question, and Councilman Harsh for your comment. Next up in the queue, we actually want to turn it over to Dwight, who wanted to speak about his experience as a potential buyer of the building. After that, we have a couple questions from Dot, and then we'll go Brenda and Kathy after that. So Dwight, Dot, Brenda. Dwight, take it away.
Good evening, everybody. We have had a very learned experience with this building. We have been in that building throughout everywhere. I've even been up in the bell tower. I find it interesting. I know that there's a lot of problems with the building. Historically, it is a pretty cool thing. If anything can be saved for that building, even if it could be incorporated in these apartments, would be a loss. We even incorporated an LLC called the Bell Tower to be able to buy that building. But unfortunately, financially, it did not work out for us, and we moved to Ohio City. But I hope that the builders can incorporate, if they can, and I know there's tax money out there and breaks and so forth, to save any part of that structure in its entirety would be greatly appreciated by everybody in this community, and how much I and my husband were involved in that building. I have a bit of a soft spot, even though we didn't get it, because that building has history and has a spirit to it that I would hate for it to go away. So I'm hoping something in the future will include the building itself, parts of it, at least I hope.
Thank you, Dwight. And I think that actually relates similarly to Dot's questions. Dot had two questions. One about the name of the architecture firm, and they have an office in Cleveland. So if we can share that, and I can put their name in the chat, and I will do that. So I don't know if Scott and Lucas, you want to talk about that, but also Scott, there's a question about labor with respect to NRP's projects.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for the questions. So the architecture firm is called Hooker de Jong. They have an office in Cleveland. They are a national firm. We use firms that are national, as well as firms that are specifically local and exclusively here in Cleveland. I think Lucas mentioned this earlier in his presentation. The reason we selected this firm for this project was because they have a lot of experience and background in, and this addresses a little bit of the last question as well, in reusing materials and in designing buildings that harken back to or that show significance to what was there previously. So, we are exploring right now. It's a long process, and Lucas sort of outlined that timeline. This is the first of many conversations, I'm sure. if and when the project moves forward. But we are exploring, which materials on site we are able to reuse and we are able to incorporate, whether that's brick, stained glass, or the wood beams inside. We're looking at all of that right now. To the question around labor, the answer I have for you is we use union labor, but not exclusively union labor. Union shops are welcome to bid on all of our projects, on every single part of the project. And we will take into account history, qualifications, and price of the bid. And that's how we approach these. On the labor note, I will add, with all of our projects in Cleveland, both tied to our financing and we tend to go above and beyond this because it's important to us. We will set MBE, WBE, so that's minority business enterprise, women business enterprise, and Section 3 hiring goals for the project. The project that Lucas mentioned or showed an image of earlier, our development in Slavic Village, as well as our project just down after Pearl turns into West 25th in the Clark Fulton neighborhood. We've exceeded our goals. Our goals were, I think, 35% of the total development costs going to MBE, WB, and Section 3 workers. We've exceeded those goals in both those projects in Cleveland right now. So that is something in terms of labor that I just wanted to bring up as well.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Lucas. I'm going to turn it over to Brenda, who had a question about the parking, which I think was answered by Lucas, Scott, and actually Pastor Reif, if you want to comment on that. And Brenda also had a question about burials, and I believe that also is probably answered based off of the environmental due diligence that was done on the site. So Lucas, Scott.
Yeah, so on parking, so right now our parking ratio that we have, and the pastor and I are working through a shared parking agreement for that site. Right now, including parallel parking that's on the streets and the parking we think we can fit on the site plan that Lucas showed earlier, we're at about 1 spot per unit, which we recognize for the amount of 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units in there is most likely not going to be enough. So simultaneously, as we're moving forward with this development, with financing applications, with design, with all of the things that go into that, we're also looking at nearby property owners and nearby uses and trying to figure out where we can find shared parking agreements. With the plans of approaching the owners of the CVS parking lot across the street, the Metro Health Garage on the other side of Pearl as well. The goal is to make sure that there's sufficient parking for every resident of the unit. Obviously, 1, because that benefits our residents, and 2, from a pure incentives perspective, if we can't park our development, it becomes difficult to lease it up. So we have every incentive to make sure that there's adequate parking for residents there. In terms of a burial site, we've done a phase 1. I know OBCDC had done environmental testing prior as well. We have not found any historical indication of any sort of burial site on the premises. Jeff, you're smiling. If you know anything else, please let me know. But we have not found any historical indication anything like that is on the site.
Yeah, we conducted a full what's called a phase 1, and that includes historical documents as long as back there are historical documents, as well as then based off of that historical documentation search, a limited phase 2 work, which involved actually drilling into the soil on the site, and nothing was found. We did find that in like a 1929 to 1930 period, some business was selling crude oil in buckets, and therefore we had to drill the soil. But that was
found that too.
the extent of what we found in the due diligence. So thank you for those questions. Next up is Kathy Weaver, who I think just generally has a question about. Kathy, I don't know if you want to put it more specifically about the timeline and why we're presenting this today.
You know what? Absolutely. The timeline. I am a follower of everything on Facebook, and I do follow the Old Brooklyn News, and this is the first I've heard that we are to this point in this planning process. And I come from a design background out of Kent State, and I'm sorely disappointed that the community at large has not been better informed of the plans to do a major project at that corner. And it is very, very disappointing to hear what our Old Brooklyn Development Corporation has been doing. And I'm not so sure this is the right direction. Perhaps it is, but it certainly does not seem to have been well informed by the community, and I am a person who considers herself well informed, although I do not sit at those committee meetings.
Thank you, Kathy. And I'll take that one, as you know, this has been my work for the last 8 years. You know, we're pretty, we've shared this with you as quickly as, you know, possible. You know, there are a lot of community development corporations, you know, a lot of developers, you know, we own the land. We could have waited until after the tax credits were done and the financing was done, and then said, here, now we have a project, let's design it to make it better. You know, our board literally voted on this a month and 3 days ago. So this is hot off the presses to share this with the community as quickly as we can, knowing that projects do have timelines and properties do have holding costs and carrying costs. So
I understand that, and I know that you acquired that property from the person who sponsors the Old Brooklyn Historical Society, and I know she had some issues with that entire property. So I do know a little bit of background on this. But I am not a longtime Old Brooklyn resident of, you know, like 30 years who knows all these things. It just seems, I'm trying not to be cynical, but as a historical preservation person, it just seems that there's not enough due diligence being done here. And I'm trying to be positive, but I just wonder, and how did this come about so quickly with this organization that you're looking to do this project with?
Lucas, do you want to take it or do you want me to? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, please feel free to add what you'd like, Jeff, but I would just say that, you know, as kind of outlined throughout the presentation, we've been involved at the table here on the corner of Memphis and Pearl since 2014. Over the last couple of years, really diving in to understand, you know, what's possible here, the historicity of it. And we've made every attempt, you know, along the way to make sure that the community has been involved in that. There's been a number of community engagement sessions, you know, comments at city planning and those types of things. So we wanted to make sure that everyone's voice was heard, again, to kind of echo what Jeff has been talking about. As this plan came together and our board charged us to move forward with the plan, we brought it to you this evening to get your input, and we'll continue to get your input as we kind of move through the phases here.
Councilman Harsh,
I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I'm just saying that because it came about so suddenly, it is not getting a full public vetting as it should have. I've been involved on the outskirts of some other things that have gone on in Old Brooklyn since I've moved here. And there are times that things are not vetted as well as they could have been. That's all I'm saying, and I'm hoping that this is a good thing for the community. But I do believe we need to take a few moments to pause and be sure this is the right thing.
You know, Ms. Weaver, I saw your comments and I would like to jump in here again. This is Chris Harsh, the councilman in Ward 13. I don't know if you can see me. I don't know if your video is working. So I was sworn in a couple weeks ago, and if you've heard the saying, there's no safe way to catch a falling knife. This is a falling knife, and it's been falling for a couple of years. And trying to resolve this situation is going to be difficult. I've been aware of Old Brooklyn's efforts to try to move people into this. I've heard the rumors. I remember when it was going to be a fitness center, it was going to be a coffee shop, it was going to be a bunch of different things, and it's been going on for quite a while. But I come from a community development background as well, and I just want to say that a few things I think are important. In order to take advantage of opportunities to seize state funding, the LIHTC funding that they're going for, you have to have a developer, you have to have a partner. You can't just go in and say, hey, can we have some money? And then if we get the money, then we'll go figure out what to do with the money. You have to actually put together some kind of plan, some kind of proposal to go in and apply for it. So they have to do that in order to take advantage of the opportunity to even get the funds. Now, Jeff and Lucas, correct me if I'm wrong, The application goes in, it hasn't gone in. I think it goes in soon, but the application is not a guaranteed 100% thing. I hate to say this because I don't like to be pessimistic about anything, but the whole thing could be denied, right? And I don't like to put that out. I mean, I'm not trying to get down that road, but my point is, what Old Brooklyn is doing here is an extremely early community meeting to discuss the situation, because if they do get the funding, everything changes and the money's real and it's on the table. You know, President Bush, the second one, said, you go to war with the army you have, not the army you want. And I'm reminded of that a lot of times, because what I think he was speaking of is we have to be sincere about the resources we have available to us at the time that we have them available to us. And we have to think about what we can do in the present tense with our available resources. And so Wednesday, February 9th, come to Estabrook. Let's have this conversation in person with all of you. We'll sit in a circle. We'll do this again.
Thank you, Councilman.
I was just gonna say, you know what, Chris? You're our new councilman. I'm counting on further conversations with you. And I believe that it does take this sort of pre-planning with business to make things happen. So I don't mean to be a negative Nancy. I'm just being a little bit of a doubter that I want to be sure that this is the right direction. Now,
Thank you, Kathy. The next question in the chat was to Anna Maria Ham, whose question is really kind of directed towards Pastor Reif. And so, Pastor Reif, I don't know if you saw that question, but it was kind of what are your thoughts on if this project has any positive or negative impacts on your congregation and its ability to thrive?
Sure, thanks. Absolutely. I mean, first off, I want to say that we have been part of this conversation pretty consistently, you know, for now, well, almost the entire 6 years I've been here. So it's been, you know, it's funny because for us, it's been like a day-to-day thing, and we've met with the CDC and folks a lot over these last few years. So I think for us, we're also a little bit more prepared to hear about this. Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, you know, certainly we're a little disappointed that one of the plans that didn't involve our church building directly didn't come through. At the same time, we have to realize that that idea of mixing new construction with historic renovation may not have been, you know, is kind of always a little bit of a long shot. You know, we have some concerns about traffic flow in the parking lot. We definitely have some concerns about how we will share parking so that we can continue to do the things that we want to do in the community and be the church that we need to be in the future. At the same time, I have to say it is really exciting to think about the possibility of this transformation of our block. I mean, currently, you know, after 5 o'clock, there's nothing going on our block. You know, we're next to an abandoned building by a pretty much abandoned house that's just being used for storage, and all of the stores along the way close. And when we leave our choir rehearsals and things in the evening, it can be kind of scary out there. And so, you know, our thought is to go from that to a block that now has, you know, 50 families of between 100 and 200 people on site. You know, this completely changes the nature of this, and it's going to bring challenges because we'll have neighbors, and anytime there's neighbors, there's going to be you know, conflict to negotiate, of course. But at the same time, we'll have folks that we can be in community with and do ministry with, and that to me, I think, is an exciting possibility for the future of the church. You know, when we think about someone asked about the farmers market. I don't know how construction would affect it, but the site itself where the market takes place is not currently, you know, slated to be a part of this construction. So imagine having the farmers market, and now in addition to, you know, all the folks who can come in on the Diamond Line buses, imagine having the farmers market now with these 100 people as well, you know, shopping there and accessing it. You know, so for us to be a church that went from being kind of tucked away and hidden at the back end of an underutilized corner to now be connected to this very important development holds some real possibilities as well. So that's our hope, to be here, to be in ministry, to build community, to do those things that Methodists just love to do.
Next question in the queue was from Joe Bielek about kind of what sort of feedback we expect. I think this is part of the dialogue. All the chats that all the comments are in there, all the one-on-one conversations. If I had the ability to see the future, Joe, I'd make a lot more money than what I do. So I don't think I can answer kind of what's expected, but I think it's pretty reflective of the dialogue here. So I'm going to skip back. We can come back to that. Joe, if you'd like.
Jeff,
Yeah.
actually, do you mind if I just address that point just really quick? Just to sort of build on Councilman Harsh's point and address that, Jeff. This is a competitive process for the financing that we're seeking here. Usually about 30% of developments that go in for this financing are actually awarded every year. So it is a very competitive process. We're confident in this project. We wouldn't be pursuing it if we weren't, but it is a competitive process. And also if the project is awarded funds, we're still looking at another 12 to 18 months of community feedback. This project will go through formal design review processes and city planning commission. Those are all public meetings at the city. We'll go through the Board of Zoning Appeals for a few variances for the project that are all public meetings. And again, I and we are at NRP are happy to participate in many of these community meetings as is helpful moving forward as well. So just wanted to add that for what it's worth, Jeff.
So the next question of the queue would be about how property management is going to be done and who's going to be doing property management. And that question came from Maria.
Yeah, I can address that. So we are, so just our partnership with OBCDC, we are co-developers and co-owners of the development. So OBCDC is going to be involved in this project the entire way through, and we'll have rights and approvals and all those things over the project as well. We as NRP, we're fully vertically integrated, which means we're the developer. We're also, we'll be the general contractor ourselves, and we'll be the property manager also. We manage about 35,000 units of housing across 15 states, including almost 10,000 here in the state of Ohio. And we've been doing that for over 25 years. So something we're very comfortable with, something we're very good at. And again, because it's going to be OBCDC and NRP throughout this entire process, can confidently say that, for better or worse, at NRP, I'm going to be the guy you're dealing with this entire time. There's not going to be another group that we're going to flip this to in 2 years who will take over management and who you won't know. It'll be us through the entire duration.
Thanks, Scott. Next question was from Andrew about, and this relates to Councilman Harsh's comment before, is about how competitive is this project and what is kind of broadly speaking across the state of Ohio, what percentage of applications get financed through the Ohio Housing Finance Agency? If anybody can say that 5 times fast, you get a special prize.
If the question was how many, about 30% of applications actually get financed in any given year. There's usually 50 to 60 applications that go in. It really depends. And there's a competitive scoring criteria that is it includes site's location, proximity to neighborhood amenities, design, green design criteria, and the actual capital stack and financing of the development. All those go into this competitive criteria.
Thanks, Scott. So the next question came from Berto, but I'm not exactly sure, Berto, what you're asking there. But the question is something about affordability. So Berto, I don't know if you want to clarify the question. I'll just read it, and Lucas and Scott, I'll let you take it from there. Curious about how the rent prices will be achieved and maintained to provide affordable housing for new or existing residents.
Yeah, absolutely. So the rents that we're charging here are based off of, this is how all affordable housing is calculated, percentages of area median income. And the rents that Lucas outlined here, so we're looking at the lowest rents for 1 bedrooms are going to be a little over $350 per month, and the highest rents for 3 and 4 bedroom units are going to be right around $1,200 per month. Majority of those rents are going to be anywhere between, and I apologize, I'm looking at the other screen. I have our rent chart in front of me just so I'm speaking correctly, are between $600 and $900 per month. And those will be the rents for at least the next 15 years of the project. And that is tied to our financing. So if we are awarded this competitive financing that we talked about a lot here, we are legally required to keep the rents at that rate, at that affordability for the duration of the project life cycle.
And I would add Jeff, not only are we excited about adding more rental property to Old Brooklyn and to the Brighton corridor, but certainly the placement of this along a key transit line, highly accessible. These are things of great value to folks in Old Brooklyn. So we're super excited to be able to do that.
Great. So next question is Alicia, and then we'll get to the Deirdre, Jason, John question, and then Jennifer's question. So Alicia had a question about what sort of preferences would be available to residents for jobs on the site, for bidding on the site, for businesses to move into the building, and for the apartment lease-up.
Yeah, so I'll try to address all those. And if I miss anything, Jeff, Lucas, please keep me honest. So on the jobs, I think I mentioned that a little bit earlier. We do have Section 3 hiring goals, which is focused on residents of Cleveland and businesses based in Cleveland. Between minority business enterprise, women business enterprise, and Section 3 hiring goals, our goal will be at least 35%, 30 to 35% of the total development costs will be awarded to those specific types of subcontractors. So that's the targets that we hit for that. In terms of local businesses, there is going to be that commercial space, about 3,000 square feet. We have not solidified a user for that yet. I'm looking forward to working with the council people, everyone here, and Lucas and Jeff, and figuring out exactly what use is going to bring the most benefit to the neighborhood there. In terms of the actual apartments and who can live there, so we're not allowed to discriminate or to turn anyone away for an apartment because of where they live. It's a Fair Housing Act violation. So, unfortunately, we can't restrict these units purely or solely to residents of Old Brooklyn. However, we will be marketing these units, if and when the development moves forwards, when they come online. And what we can be sure to do, and what we can work with OBCDC to do, is make sure that when these units become available, that availability goes out first through OBCDC channels and into the neighborhood. Again, we can't restrict any units to residents of the neighborhood, but we can make sure that folks who live here are hearing about these apartments and hearing about these units as soon, if not before, everyone else.
I just wanted to add as well, Scott, thank you for that, and Jeff, the OBCDC being at the table for the commercial space and helping to strategize about the types of businesses that we'd like to see go in there. We'll take the same approach that we did with our building just down the street. Whereby we want to be incredibly thoughtful and intentional about the types of businesses that go in there. We turned down a great number of businesses that we just felt didn't properly reflect what the neighborhood wanted or needed. And so we'll take the same approach here and making sure that the rents are fair so that small businesses have an opportunity to come in and thrive, which has been really the lifeblood of the commercial district for over 100 years.
So I'm going to summarize and do my best to summarize three kind of separate questions that were related, but I know this is an important conversation on everyone's mind and an important question on everyone's mind, and it's with respect to the consideration of historic preservation. That so John answered a question about that after his comment in the chat. Jason asked a question about it, and Deirdre asked a question about that, and I think all of know, and I'm going to speak pretty candidly here. That our goal from day one for 8 years now has been to restore as much as we can in that corner as possible. The United Church of Christ abandoned our neighborhood on the morning after Easter. I've said it before and I'll say it again, there's something really wrong about that. There's something really wrong about that. The morning after you're celebrating the resurrection of walking away from a place and you're walking away from your life. You're closing the door on that community. We reached out to them on day one and we said that we wished to work with them on a positive community reuse. They said, sure, but we have a very high asking price. Half of you are on this call have walked through the building with us. Some of you as exterminators, some of you as council members, some of you as funders, some of you as entrepreneurs, some of you as just interested parties. OBCDC has walked over 100 parties through the property. 8 years later, 5 of those with utilities turned off, the United Church of Christ gave us a death knell. They gave us a death knell. we, at the same time, still, when we met with every developer that we talked to all this summer, we said, we got to bring vibrancy to this corner. And then if you can save this church, save this church. And by the way, if you can save Pearl Road United Methodist Church, save Pearl Road United Methodist Church. And that's when they all looked at me and they said, those folks in Old Brooklyn are crazy and I want nothing to do with them. And they went running for the hills because we demanded good things. We demanded good things. Of those 100 parties that have looked through, only one took it to a point beyond a precursory conversation for saving the church. That was a group that we started talking with, and Lucas mentioned with them earlier. They're a small boutique historic preservation firm. They brought with them the most prolific historic preservation architect in the state of Ohio and the most prolific historic preservation financier in the state of Ohio. Some of you on this call have recommended experts that you think can bring ideas to this table. All of those experts point to this group that started working on the project in August. And we told the group in August that we wanted to have a decision by the end of the calendar year, so we could know where to start putting more time and money. I sat in that developer's office at about 4:35 on Tuesday, December. Christmas was on a Saturday this year, right? Oh, yeah. So Tuesday, December 21st. And I said, all right, we gave you the timeline. We gave you 4 months. What can you tell me? And they said, well, we don't know if we can do a project. We don't know what would go in the project. We don't know if it's financially feasible. We know that if we did anything on the project, we would need to kick Pearl Road United Methodist Church out of their structure entirely. And we have no use for the sanctuary ever, period. But if you give us another 7 months, we might be able to give you some more firm answers on that. Our board took that information. Our board reviewed that information. Our board made the decision that they made, and I respect that decision. I don't know if I have my board chair, Dave Margolis. I don't know if he wants to add anything. I will stand on that process. I was disappointed that we couldn't get a good option, but after 8 years and over 100 folks, it didn't happen. So,
Can I hop in on that real quick, Jeff?
yes, Pastor Rice, please do.
Sure, and I can affirm just pieces of that. And I know which historic firm he's talking about, and I also met with them, and we also had that conversation where they said, in order to make it work, we really need to move Pearl Road into the St. Luke's building, which was not something that my church really felt comfortable with, having toured that building and being aware of some of its problems and eccentricities and issues. So that was also for us kind of, when we consulted that historic firm, we also hit a roadblock on what we were willing to do as a congregation as well. I'll also just throw out that in the 6 years I've been pastor of Pearl Road United Methodist Church, I have stood on our front lawn at farmers markets and pedal for prizes and dozens of other events. And at almost every one, somebody points to the St. Luke's building and says, somebody ought to save that building. And I've always felt like that's it's a good sentiment, but it's always somebody else. Somebody else ought to come in and save that building. But we have yet to see anybody step up who says, I have an actual plan for saving this building and I intend to do it. And I feel like we've done a lot of trying over these years to find it. And heck, for a short time, we were even on that list. Pearl Road United Methodist Church went through with our district trustees, with our own trustees. And as we walked through and said, there's been flooding in this building that hasn't been aired out. There's so much mold in here. One of the folks, the trustees walking through with us, was pregnant. We made her leave the building because we said it's not safe for you to be in this structure. To see the complex state its various heating systems are in. As we went through, we just said this building is well beyond our means. And we were the best people, because if a church takes it over, we don't have to make it ADA accessible because it's not got a change of use. But even us looking at it, we said, this is just beyond us. So I've always held out hope that the right person would show up who had both the strong passion for this building and the significant funds necessary to do a passion project like that. But we've waited, 6, 7, 8 years behind a steadily decaying building. And as far as I know, we haven't found that person yet.
Yeah, and I can, Jeff, you asked me to just say a few words as the board president over this vote in December. So I can just speak to how proud I am and we are as a board of Jeff and the entire organization, Old Brooklyn CDC. They have lost years of sleep over this decision and this process to try and bring the best corner possible to Pearl Memphis, and they've worked so hard to try and find that preservation that we all wanted, and so proud of all the sleep that's been lost, and so proud of all the engagement here tonight. It's just really wonderful to see everybody working together to figure out what's best for the neighborhood. So thank you.
There's another question from Jennifer Johnson in there about how much low-income housing we have within the neighborhood and do we need any more? I think that also relates to a question that Jason Hooper had about kind of why affordable housing. Old Brooklyn actually has very little structured affordable housing, which is what we're going to be building, in the sense that it is regulated for proper maintenance and controls, and not just kind of an abusive predatory system that is very common what we see with the landlords. And as Scott said, $600 to $900 a month for most of the rents. That is reflective of most of our units. And I think it's reflective of them. Probably about half of the residents in Old Brooklyn would be able to move into the building on the day we open. And so I feel pretty good about that. And then I think Jason asked a question about why affordable housing with respect to neighborhood development. It's a pretty great practice. First of all, we should be providing high quality housing for a lot of residents. We should provide them alternatives to Holton Wise. Thank you, Alicia, for saying that. What a lot of folks don't know, some of you on this do, 90% of Detroit Shoreway and the Gordon Square Arts District was redeveloped using low-income housing tax credits. It is a really valuable strategy for bringing investment to your main corridors and bringing density and residents to your main corridors that are customers of your bike shop, that are customers of your coffee shop, that are customers of the pet store next door. Those are residents who will become customers and drive more business activity, which then drives more development. And as an organization, we support affordable housing. We also develop a lot of market rate housing, both in our single family housing and multifamily housing. We expect to be announcing not just this project, but other projects that are market rate in the near timeframe and the near vicinity to this project as well. So I've promised Lucas that I wasn't going to take over questions, but I did. And so I apologize for that, Lucas. Can't help myself. I believe at this point we've kind of handled everything in the chat. We're after 7. I know some folks are dropping off. We can hang for a few more minutes. If anyone has an additional questions, please either drop in the chat, or use the raise hand function. Councilman Harsh, I know you're going to be hosting the community meeting, so I'll pass it over to you as well.
Thanks. I want to just address the affordability issue because I hear some people say different things about new construction. Some people say that you bring in poor people, crime goes up. Some people say you build something new, taxes go up. When I was a kid, I asked my dad if we were rich or we were poor, and my dad said that rich people think we're poor and poor people think we're rich. And that's because income and affordability is very subjective based on where you are in life. I consider $600 to $800 a month apartments to be market rate, pretty much normal going rate in the area right now. We have people renting houses, the first floor of houses all over Old Brooklyn for $750 a month. It's pretty normal. So $600 to $800 a month rent is not super low or super high. But the people in Columbus that craft these programs have different definitions, and they consider it low income. So they consider that, a low income housing. I think sometimes the bureaucrats, the higher you go, the further off the ground they get, and they lose, track of how most of us live. But the other thing that's really important, I saw somebody mention, the other side of the bridge. This is not a permanent supportive housing. What happened up at the YMCA site is a site specifically for people that were homeless, site specifically for people that have been struggling with chronic, homelessness issues their entire life. That's not what this is. This does not get anywhere close to that. This is a housing that will be, the people that apply for will have to show that they're not rich, that they're not, capable of living in really extravagant housing. But this, for the most part, will fit in with the price points of most of our neighbors. And I just want to make sure that people understand that it's not really a low income as much. It is a low income housing tax credit, but 6,800 is pretty much what people on your street, if you live on the streets with rentals, that's pretty much what people are paying.
Thank you for that clarification, Councilman Harris. I think that addresses a lot of questions on that point, as is noted in the chat. Okay, so on behalf of OBCDC, thank you. We will do from here. Just I want to be clear with everyone. We will post we'll post this video as well as the presentation on the same website that has all the historical documentation from, oh, we're gonna have one question from the Loizoses. So I want to go out after we're going to go to the Loizoses in a second, but we're going to post this video and the documentation that goes along with all the Old Brooklyn news articles and prior presentations, the master plan on this, as well as share the information about the meeting that Councilman Harsh will be hosting with all attendees on February 9th. So we're passed off to Sophia and Michael for the last question, and we'll take it from there. So Sophia, Michael, please go ahead and jump in. I'm not sure they know how to I'm going to try and unmute them from my end, but I don't know if I know how to. Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Hi, Michael. Hi, Sophia.
All right. I know the church has been a lost cause, and I understand, that you really tried hard to get that resolved. My question one is, you said 4 stories, I think. How high is that compared to Pearl Methodist Church? How high is that compared to your structure, that the Development Corporation is in? And that's one issue I have about the heights there, especially facing that height, that 4 foot, that 4-story height right on the street front. I remember our restaurant, the Glen Restaurant, used to sit on the corner. And when they took it down and set back the CVS, it really impressed me how turning the corner, it opened up the space, how much sitting on the corner blocked out the space. If you could redesign the building to open up that corner, so when people are at the turn, they can see in and then build a building. And I don't know, for me, I can see the building being built in steps too. I guess I'm like others, that because of what was built across the bridge, which was necessary, not but that we should make this a future project. This can be a turnaround for Old Brooklyn to be stepping in, like Ohio City and Tremont and those. They've been investing, building expensive properties. I don't mean to, limit the people, but it's just to make it look a showpiece, the start of a showpiece around here. And with that, I'll pass.
Thank you, Michael. With respect to the design, that's a community conversation that we will have over many, many months. This is the first conversation of many. Specifically regarding the heights, the Recovery Resources Building across the street from the Old Brooklyn headquarters is 4 stories. The Deaconess Arts Building next to it is 6 stories. The garage behind it is 9 stories. The tower is 9 stories. The Pearl Road United Methodist Church is, Harlan, y'all 3 or 3.5?
Yeah, we got some stuff that you might call a 4th story, but I would say that the main roof line is about a 3-story, but then story 1's a good 10 feet off the ground. So, Tom Heights is on this call. He can answer better than I can.
All right, again.
Yeah, I just, you know,
Right.
the other thing, Jeff, that we have that really closed up the inner traffic on the street was the way Deaconess built itself up across the way. We used to have a lot of shops down at that other end, across from you. In and where they would put that building and that they eliminated a lot of businesses out of there and eliminated a lot of traffic. You know, I just feel that we're building walls with the houses and we don't realize it. And because we have a lot of people in that building, we feel they're going to be part of the community, but I haven't seen that happening, you know. But that, yeah. I have other reservations, but that's.
No, Mike, I know you and I know so many others on this call have lived through the loss of the Broadview Theater, the loss of the Glen and what that meant for businesses. I'm confident that's a new day in Old Brooklyn and we will not live through that again, and instead we'll move forward for a stronger future. So again, thank you all so much. Information will be shared with you about Councilman Harsh's public meeting, and then all these materials will be presented online. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much.